Hello everybody, this is Peter from WebAcon. I'm the owner and the web developer for the company WebAcon. And we build really awesome websites. We do a lot of custom work, we do WordPress, we do custom development, you name it. Now this tutorial is going to be focused on domain registration and hosting. I've put together a small PowerPoint presentation, which doesn't happen too often. A lot of my other videos, they are very specific to training other web developers how to program websites. This is going to be extremely simple, down-to-earth, very basic tutorial for really customers and clients that want to get a website but they don't know where to start. So if you're a web developer, this is definitely not a video for you. You probably know all of this long time now. But if you're somebody who is looking to order a website and you are not sure what is a hosting, what is a domain, and why do you need both things, and maybe you don't even know what hosting is, maybe you've heard that term for the first time, this is going to be a video that talks about those elements and how they tie into the actual website that you're going to get at the very end. So let's get started. So the first thing that I'm going to look into is a quick summary here. So we're going to look into what is domain registration, going to look at what is hosting, and we're going to put everything together. We're going to look at what is happening behind the scenes for when you actually go to a website, so you can understand the structure of how everything connects together. Let's say you want to go to a specific website, and we're going to choose essentialpselfstorage.com. This is a fairly new website that we have just built for a client. And you can see that it just magically appeared on your browser. You can see the domain name over here. That's the domain name. Essentialpselfstorage.com. That's what you type into the URL bar here. And you can see that a website comes up. So in order for you to actually see that picture, there's quite a bit of things that happen in the back end. When we typed in the address, the user, which is myself, that is doing the typing in the address bar of our browser, that request goes to a specific organization, set of computers located all over the place, called domain registrar. Domain registrar is a location where it keeps the name that we type in to a specific number. That's all it does. I mean, that's pretty much it. It doesn't have anything else. And I can demonstrate that to you. If we're going to go to webacon.com, let's go to Google, domain IP address. We can actually look up what specific IP address a domain is connected to. There's an IP checker tool. So let's go to webacon.com. We're going to click check. And you can see that the domain name webacon.com has this specific address right over here. So that's what happens. This domain registrar is the agency, I would say, an agency that has looked at my webacon.com, and it looked into the records, and it pulled up that it points to this specific number. Now this specific number gets sent across different routers and different networks in order for you to be able to, well, in order for you to be able to see the website, but it points directly to the hosting provider. So it points to a specific server. So this address is the address of the server that keeps your website. Now the server receives the request, this number, and it also receives the domain name. Now once it received the two pieces of information, hosting provider will take both pieces of information. It will go into the backend administration, and it will get info in terms of what type of page you're looking for, and it will basically process the actual website for you, and it will spewed out HTML, CSS, and Java back to your browser so you can actually see the website. So in order for you to see a website, all of this has to happen, and it happens pretty much instantaneously. Fairly complex structure, but that's how it works. Now, if you want to introduce a new website to the world of internet, there's a couple of things that you need to take into consideration. First of all, you need to be able to register a domain, and you can register a domain through a domain registrar. And domain registrar is not a free service. It's a corporation. There's many corporations that register domains, and it's not a government agency. It is a for-profit organization, so they take money for that. And they take about $15 per year. Now, different companies charge different rates, but generally speaking, it is that much. Now, in terms of the hosting provider is the place, it's the engine, it's the computer that does most of the heavy lifting, and it creates the actual HTML, CSS, and Java, and also provides space for a developer to work in. It's fairly big place, fairly complex element. So this complex element sits inside a hosting company. There's a lot of different hosting companies that are available, and they provide hosting services to web developers. And they also are for-profit organizations. They are not same thing as domain registrar. They might look like they are domain registrar, but that is only because domain registrars have ability to interlink to hosting provider and create user experience that is very seamless. It looks like everything is connected in one place. Just like what I have on my website. If you go to hosting and domains, you can see that I offer domain registration, and I also offer hosting. It seems like everything is in one location, but it is not. This is a huge company, and hosting providers are also a huge company. In my specific case, I rent a server. And because I have a rental server, I'm able to provide hosting within for my clients. But my server is rented from another large company called 1&1, and they have big computers, big buildings where they have a lot of computers together, high-speed internet connections. I mean, it's a fairly complex infrastructure. So the hosting provider provides hosting space and provides all of the heavy lifting, and that costs between $5 a month all the way up to $350 per month, or even higher. Why there is such a big difference? Because websites that have a lot of traffic, they need complex structures to be able to deliver data to their end users. Small websites that are extremely tiny, they can go with $5 a month plans. But $5 a month is the bare minimum. Usually that is for a web developer that knows how to build websites. Or it is for a do-it-yourself builders, which is a different story altogether. Okay, now we have seen the overview of a website behind the scenes. Let's look closely at each of the elements. Domain registration. Now you might be watching this video because maybe I've asked you to watch it before you register a domain, and this is a really key point here. How do you register a good domain name? Why do you need a domain? Well, first of all, without a domain you will not be able to have a website, because if you are going to type in my new website, I don't know, .com, it's not going to give you anything. In order for you to be present on internet, you need to be able to register this name within the domain registrar. Domain registrar is this guy over here. In order for you to register a domain name, you need to find a domain name that is available. You cannot register Google .com because it is already taken. And you cannot register majority of the domain names, let's say houseconstruction.com, because these are extremely popular names. They're very easy to remember, and majority of the simple names, they are already taken. So feel free to use this tool and find a domain name that would be available. Let's say this strange domain name. I'm sure nobody decided to register this very odd domain name, so it's going to be available. And you're able to click Order Now button and you'll be able to register it through us or through other companies. Now, once you register a domain, you will have this specific name, or whatever name you decide to use, whatever name you find, it will be yours. It will be under your organization, hopefully. And you basically made the claim that this specific domain name is yours to keep. Now, imagine if you had owned google.com and Google decided to create a search engine. So you could have made a lot of money by selling that domain name to Google once Google decided to call themselves Google. But they found out that sadly somebody already registered their domain name google.com, so they would probably buy it from you for $1 million. But that happens fairly often, but not as often as it used to, simply because very good domain names have already been registered by companies that keep good domain names. There's a lot of those. So I would invite you to go to Hosting Domains and really spend your time looking at different domain names. My recommendation is to go with .com domain name, simply because a lot of people remember .com names. And if you have a website that .com was not available, somebody already has .com name and you register .org, then your clients might type in .com instead of .org by accident. That happens fairly often because people are used to .com domain names and they might end up in on some other website. So that's just my quick overview of the domain names. So pick something that works. Recently a client of mine registered a very interesting domain name as resale.com. I think it's genius. You can see that this domain name is so small. It's just S and resale. Secret Designers Resale, but the domain is tiny. And she probably spent 2 or 3 days trying to find this domain name, but she found it. It was available and she ordered it. And that was really cool. I couldn't believe that she found such a small and such a nice looking domain name. So spend your time, see what domain names are available, make a list, talk to your friends, find the one that you are happy with, and then the next part would be to have your own domain that's registered to your name. It is really important that you own the domain name. Again, the same example with Google. If I owned the Google domain name, I could have sold it to Google. But imagine you ask me to register a domain name, and I register a domain name on your behalf, but I register it under my organization. Now, I can tell you that, hey, I registered a domain name for you, it's available, we can use it, but it actually doesn't belong to you. That happens a lot on web development, especially with smaller companies, because it is a lot easier and quicker to register a domain name simply to a web development company's name. You don't have to ask client to go back to their email and verify that they actually want to register a domain. And in that specific case, when that happens, problems occur because if a web development company suddenly disappears or they go out of business, Not only does client lose their website, clients also lose their ownership to their domain, and that's not good. So make sure that you own the domain and make sure that it is registered under your name. And there's a couple of fields within the domain registration. There's the owners who owns the domain, and there's also administrative contact. Now, the web development company that registered your domain, they can definitely be within the administrative contact fields, but not as the owners of the domain. Okay, so that we covered. I think this is one of the most important elements that I can't stress enough. It happens way too often that people lose their domain names. Okay, find an available domain. I think I covered that a little bit here. You can go to my tool here that I've created for people to search for domain names. Feel free to explore it. It's fairly easy to use. You can just type whatever you want .com, and you can search for domain names all day long. And it's ad-free. Usually search tools like that, they have ads all over the place on the right and left side. It's completely ad-free, very easy to use, very easy to navigate. So take advantage of that. Finding a domain registrar. There's different options to register a domain. You can see that domain registrar, that's what we're talking about right now. Now, we do offer domain registration, as you have seen here. You would find the domain name that's available that you want to use. You would click Order Now. You would fill out this information here, populate your credit card, and it will create a subscription that will allow you to subscription of $15 a year for your domain name. And I take this information that you would enter, and I would go back into my domain registrar, which is 1&1, and I'm going to register a domain on your behalf, but I'm going to use your info that you provided here to have your name on it as the owner of the domain. Now, that's one way of doing it. Another option is you go yourself. Let's say you go to 1&1. That's the company that I'm using for a lot of my web development work. And you can find the domain name here, .com, let's say. You click check, and it's available. You add it to cart. You can see that they are offering the same price as I do. Because really, I'm not making any money on the domains. It's just a service that I offer to my clients. And then you go through the steps and you register a domain. What I don't like about 1&1 is their marketing. They try to get you to buy .online, .org, .co, .info. They say that it's really important that you protect your domain. Don't buy into any of that. You get one domain that you need, and that's it. They will also try to sell you hosting, but that comes into second part that we're going to be talking about. Namecheap is another option. Now, some people prefer GoDaddy. GoDaddy is a huge company, and they offer domain registration. I wouldn't go with GoDaddy, even though that they seem to be less expensive. They have very sneaky contracts that you end up paying a lot more down the road. And if you do get a good price on GoDaddy, and you can definitely get a good price on GoDaddy, it is so full of advertisement that it's not even funny. It's very difficult to work with GoDaddy. They create their architecture is very different, and they do that on purpose to keep people within their organization from moving to other organizations. So personally, I would avoid GoDaddy. Some people love GoDaddy. I don't. Okay, domain registrar warnings, what not to buy into. Any type of additional offers or packages. They will try to sell anything and everything possible while you're ordering the domain name. You're a new person within the company. If you go with 1&1 or Namecheap or GoDaddy, they will try to get you to buy as much as possible during that initial buy-in stage. So make sure you're ordering just the domain name. SSL certificates is another huge thing. If you look into, let's say, my website, or pretty much any website, well, Secret Resale, you can see that there is a green icon here. Connection is secure. If we're going to go to webbaker.com, you can see that connection is secure. This is created by what's called SSL certificates. SSL certificates are usually have to pay about $100 per year for them, but those are so-called premium SSL certificates. In reality, right now you can get an SSL certificate for free, and that's what I do with my company. I partnered with a company called Let's Encrypt, and I'm able to generate unlimited number of SSL certificates free of charge to all of my clients. So SSL certificates are free. Don't buy into them. If you want a high quality premium SSL certificate, you will know that you need one, because if you're a government agency or if you are a big non-profit organization, you will know that you need a non-standard SSL certificate. So if you don't know that, don't buy SSL certificate, because you'll be able to have even an e-commerce website with a free SSL certificate. Private registrations, yeah, pretty much all of registrations are now private, so don't worry about that. If they're trying to get you to buy into a private registration, just ignore it. Don't spend extra money on it. Special contracts and offers. They add special contracts. You might think that you're buying into a $1 a year domain name registration, but you'll probably be locked within that company for many years. So just make sure that you are not buying into an offer. Sometimes it's fairly difficult to determine what specific offers you're agreeing to. And your end price should not exceed $20 per year. If it's more than $20 per year, you purchase something that you don't need, most likely. Okay, so hosting. We are already 23 minutes into the video, so I'm going to expedite things a little bit here. Hosting. This is really just scratching the surface because hosting is a huge field altogether. This is the hosting block that we're going to be talking about. What is hosting and why you need hosting? Domain name is just the name. It doesn't have any engines, any processes attached to it. It's just it's not even an empty box. It's just a digital number for you. That's all. Now, in terms of the hosting is the real deal thing. Hosting is what allows you to create databases. Hosting allows you to create a bunch of different things on your website. And let me just give you a quick example. We're going to log in into my hosting administration here for one of the servers that I own, and this is Oil Essential. It's one of my companies. This is hosting. You can see that there's a lot of buttons. There's a lot of different options. I can create databases, I can schedule tasks, I can install WordPress, I can create a backup plan for this thing. It tracks how much memory, how much disk space this is using. I can see how much RAM this specific website takes up. Email settings, small DNS changes, different applications. PHP engine that runs in the background. There's a lot of things that are packed into hosting. And hosting is not a domain. As I mentioned before, I'm going to reiterate it a couple of times. Domain is just a number. Hosting is what makes website tick. It's the engine behind the website. So you need hosting in order to, for you to be able to display a website. In order for it to run, a website cannot run without hosting. Now, hosting options. There's quite a few of them actually. There's extremely cheap hosting providers. I guess that would be one of the categories. They are around $5 a month. Sometimes you can find even less than that. I wouldn't recommend those options simply because they are located on high volume servers that have a lot of accounts within them, and they are basically packed, usually packed as much as they can pack them. And they usually suffer from very slow response rates simply because there's way too many accounts on one server. They say that they manage them and they maintain them, but honestly, at that price point, first of all, your client support will be horrible. You will not be able to reach a client support specialist and get any reasonable conversation. And yeah, $5 a month, it really is the low range that I wouldn't even go into. Now, mid-range hosting providers, usually that's between $15 a month and $40 a month. That's your really good hosting prices. I would say even from $10 a month to $40 a month. That's at $40 a month. I mean, you're talking about good high traffic hosting that can handle high traffic, and that's pretty much what you should be aiming for. Between $15 a month to $40 a month in terms of the payment for the hosting. You'll have plenty of space. You will be able to usually get a better customer support and potentially a backup plan with it. High-end hosting, between $30 a month to $70 a month. This is really reserved for organizations that have extremely high traffic to websites and have some specific functionality that they need. So if you're looking into something like this, I would think twice. And if you're paying over $70 a month for just hosting, if you don't know why you're paying that much, you're being ripped off. If you know why you're paying over $70 a month, then you know why you're paying over $70 a month. Most likely for some specific functionality. Okay, dedicated servers. Complex projects, high traffic websites, fixed IP addresses. Basically, you will know when you need a dedicated server. Your developer will tell you. Cloud servers, same thing as dedicated servers. Maintenance and backups of a website is not hosting, and that is very true. A maintenance of your website is not your hosting. A maintenance is actually when a real person, a developer, goes into your website and he updates your plugins, he looks at what PHP version your site is running at, which is specified over here, PHP version 7.3.2. So we're going to go into PHP version. We're going to check that this is the latest. Well, see, it's not the latest version, so we're going to upgrade it. So we're going to check that all of the settings are correct. We're going to apply it, and our oilessential.ca website will actually be transferred to a new PHP script. But now the developer's job is actually to go through the website and make sure that there is no errors on the front end. But I quickly updated it because this website is in process of being developed, so I'm not risking anything here. But that's pretty much what maintenance is. It's a real person going in and not only clicking updates on your WordPress updates, but actually making sure that your hosting is running smoothly. And usually the price for the maintenance is between $80 a month and $500 a month, or it can be higher. It really depends on complexity of the website. But generally speaking, it's this. You might say, oh my gosh, this is so high, but it's not high because the developer is taking on responsibility for your website. If something goes bad, he's there to fix it. He is taking responsibility to make sure that it is running smoothly. So backups is a different topic altogether. Backups is not maintenance. Maintenance is when a person goes in. That's what I've just did, but not only with PHP, but with all other elements of the hosting and the inner connections of the website. Backups is when your developer goes in and backs up your files, backs up all of the images, saves them externally to a different location, backs up databases. And there's a couple of options to do that. There's automatic backups that can be very inexpensive, all the way down to $5 a month to an actual developer that does that manually. Now the automatic backups, they can work, but usually they don't work, simply because if backups are done automatically, usually those websites are poorly maintained. Nobody is actually going in there and looking at what scripts things are running at. And by the time website crashes, they try to get it back up and running. They cannot, because all of the scripts have not been maintained, which brings us back to maintenance. And a backup is basically worthless, or the backup system that was set up in place back at the time that website was developed is outdated, and there is no way how we can bring that website back to life through backup. That happens all the time. People buy into automatic backups, and automatic backups keep running on their own, but it usually the case is that the website is extremely old and it's impossible to restore the backup. Okay, so where is my website? Right now we talked about domain registrar, we talked about the hosting provider, but really where is your website within this picture? It seems like the website does not exist. It's a combination of things. And that's where, in this specific slide, we're going to address this question. Before we start with everything, we need to create a website for you. And usually starts with a wireframe. It goes through different graphic designing stages, and then it comes to me with all of the pictures, and I actually program it. Now the website is usually programmed on a staging space. What is a staging space? Let's say you don't have a domain name yet, you don't have a hosting account yet, but I need to show you a website that we're building, and I actually need to build the website somewhere. So I create a space. I create a space on my server, and I create a subdomain. What is a subdomain? Let's have a look at webacre.com. Webacre.com is a domain. But look at this. I'm going to type in test.webacre.com. Well, it's going to tell me the connection is not private, but okay. Proceed to webacre test location. See, test.webacre.com points to Plesk. Plesk is what is running my server. And it is a subdomain called test. I can have another subdomain, UA1. UA1 actually exists. It is one of the it's a staging space that I used to build this specific website for a client. Now I think I have UA2 as well. No, I don't have UA2. But basically, when we have a subdomain is when we add something before the domain and we add a dot in there. So, in essence, we create a specific subdomain that we build website on. Let's have a look at this specific subdomain, test.acfboot.com. You might be asking, what the heck is acfboot? acfboot is a domain name, and acfboot is a protected space. And you need a password to get into it. You click login, and this is my library of scripts that I use to build websites. I can expand, I can take code from here, and I can reuse different blocks to build different sections that have similar structure to it. So acfboot is my website. And that's why I use test.acfboot. Test is a subdomain of domain acfboot, and I used it for staging. This is a quick project that we're doing for one of the companies, and they asked us to create a model where we can add thumbnails like this. They also asked us to create a list view. And they also asked us if we can combine the list view and the thumbnails together. So we have created a prototype for a client, and this prototype is also mobile friendly. You can see how it restructures itself. And this is how it would look on a mobile device. List view and thumbnails view. So I would take something like this and I would send it to a client for a client to review the work that they have assigned to us. So this is called staging space. I'm using my domain name to show something to a client. In your specific case, when I'm going to be building a website for you, I don't need a domain name. I don't need hosting account. I am going to be creating a staging space using a subdomain. And I'll be building your website on a staging location just like that. And we'll send you just a link, just like what I have done here. I've sent this link to a client. Said, hey Bob, this is the link. Have a look at what we have accomplished. And you will receive the link, and you can go to the link and see the work that we have done for you. Okay, so when the website is completed, paid by the client and approved, what do we do next? How does it go from a staging space to your space? Now, there's a couple of options. Client provides us with hosting account, or if the client decides to host with us, we set up the hosting account ourselves. So if you decide to actually, I have another slide here that reiterates this. We're going to talk about that specifically in this 4 case scenarios. We ask client to log into demonstration so we can modify DNS settings. Okay, that's going to be reiterated. Yeah, all of that will be reiterated in the next slide. So, in order for us to take website from a staging location and post it to for the world to see at your domain, first of all, you need to register a domain name, or we register it ourselves, as I've talked about previously. And you need to have a hosting provider. You can use us. You can ask me, hey, Peter, I need a hosting. I'm going to host with you. I'm going to say, okay, that's great. I'm going to set up hosting on your behalf for you, so you don't need to do anything. If you're going to register a domain with us and host with us, basically we cover everything. We do it on your behalf. If you want to register elsewhere and host us elsewhere, then there's a couple of steps that we'll need to go through. Which brings us to this slide. To go live with your website, you will need to see which scenario you fall under. First one, if you ask us to register domain and you host with us. Basically you say, hey Peter, I trust your company, you're a great guy, I want you to do everything for us yourself. I'm going to say, hey, no problem, let's do it. So you go to my website, webbaker.com, you find the domain name that you want, you register it here, and then I'm going to set up hosting account for you. I'm going to call you, say, hey, I'm ready to get that credit card information from you so I can put it in file and create a hosting account. So we're going to set it up, and it will bill you automatically. There's nothing additional extra that we'll need. The only thing is that when we register a domain, you might get an email that will ask you to confirm domain registration. So you'll just need to watch out for that email and click that confirm button if it does come to your way. Now, if your domain is registered at a third-party company, but you host with us. So let's say you decide to register your domain name with Namecheap, for example, or GoDaddy, but you don't want to host with them, you want to host with us. No problem. This happens fairly often when somebody already registered domain name somewhere else, and they come to us, they tell us, hey, I already have a domain name, I don't have hosting. I want you to build a website and I want you to host it. So we ask access to your domain registration, to your domain administration. This way we go into your domain administration and I modify DNS settings. DNS settings allow me to verify domain name with other services. It allows me to set up email delivery, a lot of different things. So once I get into your domain administration, I will modify your DNS settings in such a way that it will point your domain name to my server, to my hosting account. Your domain will still reside and it will be still controlled at your registry where you registered it, but it will simply point all of the traffic to a specific IP address, just like what we have talked here. And this IP address will be my server, my hosting. Well, it will be your hosting, but hosting on my server. Okay, so the next scenario is your domain is registered with us, but you want to host somewhere else. That happens sometimes when a company decided to register domain with us. They are extremely tight on their security, but they didn't realize the fact that they registered domain with us, but they want it somewhere else. And they also don't want to give out access to their hosting. And once we finish development, they want to change all of the passwords. So they will call me and say, hey Peter, it's okay, your domain, the domain that we registered with you can stay with your at your name registrar, but we have found a different hosting provider, so we want to use a different hosting provider. In that case, I will say, okay, wonderful. In that case, I will need you to provide me with the hosting access, basically. So I can go into your hosting and basically install your website, go through the process of installation. And the last variation is your domain is registered somewhere else and your hosting is also somewhere else. This happens fairly often when other developers have worked on the websites previously. People already have a domain name registered and they have hosting registered somewhere else. In that case, we'll need both access to your hosting and to your domain registration, so we can modify DNS settings if we need to, and we do need to in order to install in order for us to authenticate domain with Mailgun. Mailgun allows us to send emails from your from your website to your email, and I also need access to your hosting so I can install the actual website files. Okay, so last but not least, how to register with WebAICA. That was the simplest method that we talked about. To register with us, you simply go to hosting at domains, you find the domain that you want, that you think you want, or something that you really do want. You click order now, you enter your information here, enter your card number, verify that you're not a robot. It's going to process payment for $15 a year, and it will continue bill you once a year for $15. And I'm going to call you, and we're going to set up hosting together. And the hosting plans are two plans available, $5 a month and $15 a month. This is really for my clients, and this is for other developers that want to host their clients on my server. So I have that option as well for them. So it's fairly simple. If you have questions, feel free to call me. That's my phone number. Okay, so everything together. How much does website costs on a monthly basis, ongoing? So I'm just trying to take all of the information that we covered here in terms of the prices and just put it into one small price sheet over here, and that's what I want to end this presentation at. Now, website design and development is when a graphic designer and the web developer actually builds your website. The cost here is unknown. It really depends on your specific project and what we are doing for you or what other company is doing for you. Ongoing mandatory costs are roughly $17 a month, and that includes domain registration, which is $15 a month. I mean, you cannot have a website without a domain. We covered that already. And hosting. You need a place where you host a place that will process all of the scripts and spit out the correct HTML and CSS that will be fed back to the browser so a user can actually see your website. So these two things are mandatory. You cannot have a website without these two services. And the cost for these two services comes down to about $17 a month. Now there's optional maintenance options, and there's optional items, which is maintenance and backups. Maintenance is one of the most expensive elements here because a good maintenance takes into consideration how scripts get outdated, and if PHP version migrates to a higher PHP version, sometimes entire websites need to be redeveloped. That's why companies usually, they want to accumulate some sort of, it's like insurance basically. They try to accumulate enough money so that when there's a big change in PHP or some other, or maybe in JavaScript release that requires pretty much almost like a website rebuild, but on a deeper level, then they have the budget there to be able to rebuild your website and also have a small margin to actually earn some money from it. The low-end maintenance costs, they will cover your there is options to have maintenance cost of less than $80 a month, but those will cover just the very basic updates on your account. And those updates, they will certainly be okay to keep your website up and running, but they're not going to provide that full-blown protection when something big does change within the internet. Now backups. Backups are really discretionary. There is so many ways how you can do it. Between $10 and $50. That's just very rough estimate. Really depends on the complexity of your website. I think I covered a lot of information about the backups originally. Now maintenance, you might think, oh my gosh, I need maintenance to make sure that my website runs. Doesn't have to be expensive. In our case, I am going to increase the prices for my maintenance, but I charge $25 per maintenance right now. Yes, I'm going to need to really increase the prices for maintenance. Basically, the idea was that we go in and we do an update, and we update everything that is needed for a website. But now that I'm thinking about it, we do get websites that are extremely outdated, and we're losing money on this at the price point that we have here. So I'm going to probably remove that. Again, not mandatory. Your website will run fine for about 2 years for sure, most likely. It all depends when the next release of scripts will happen and how big of a change there is. I've seen websites that run fine for 10 or more years without maintenance, but when somebody tries to change something in them, they have to be rebuilt from scratch. But I'm talking about 10 years. At that time, websites are extremely outdated and they're not mobile friendly. They do need to be rebuilt anyways. So it's one of those things that large organizations, they pay roughly about $300 a month. That's an average for maintenance. Smaller companies, they neglect it, and I can see why, because it is a pricey thing to have a web developer be there once a month and really take a dive look at all of the script releases and get everything updated. Usually maintenance takes about half an hour to an hour, but if there's a huge release, it can take a week to get everything back to the right release order with all of the scripts functioning properly. Again, majority of the companies are neglecting maintenance, and I don't blame them. That would be it. I think I covered everything. I think the maintenance element is still hazy. I'll probably be doing another video specifically focusing on the maintenance of different websites, because there are very large spectrum of websites. WordPress is notorious for maintenance costs. There is dedicated websites, custom designed websites that are on non-WordPress platform, and those websites, they pretty much don't need much maintenance, and that deserves a topic on its own. Well, thank you very much for listening into this fairly long conversation. 53 minutes we're running right now. We have addressed a lot of questions, I think, when it comes to what is a domain, what is hosting, what is maintenance, what are backups, what is domain registrar, how they connect together. Yeah, there's a lot going on behind the scenes for you to just see a nice looking website. If you like this video, please definitely hit the like button. That will really help my channel grow, and it's going to make my videos visible to other users. And click a like button if that also helped you. Thanks. Take care. Bye.